Hey there, welcome to the garage. My name is Buck. I have Squib across from me.
Hello.
If you're listening to this, you found our pilot episode. It's going to be our first upload, Squib. And welcome to Buck's Garage Podcast.
So exciting.
It
A
is
pilot.
very exciting to get this project out finally. We've been working for probably a month and a half on this, trying to get something out.
Well, and talking about it for over a year now.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually something I wanted to bring up because this was a project I had started in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I updated, so I made the Patreon in 2021 and updated it when we started work on it a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the first post that I made in 2021, I edited and it didn't take away the date post.
Oh.
So if you go to our Patreon, it looks like I have a post out there from 2 years ago.
We've been in business a long time.
Been in business a long time. Yeah.
Very experienced.
Of course. Welcome to the garage. I'll be your main host, Buck. Squib is my co-host.
And happy to be here.
Yes. And we're going to be learning with you along the way. Pilot episode, kind of the purpose, Squib, is to kind of set the expectation for this first season.
We're going to set the tone.
First season is going to be 20 episodes. Okay. And I do want to make sure that this is set for our listeners. And I hope you listening out there at least start with the pilot episode to kind of know what you're getting into as we start uploading. One of the first expectations, we are two people, Squib, and you've been on a podcast or two, but we have extremely limited experience on podcasts.
Yeah, it's going to be some learning pains and some growing pains for us both, I'm sure.
And I'm about as green as you can get. And I'm awkward in person, let alone through the mic.
Just a little awkward. Once I got to know you, I'm like, oh, this is a cool cat. Okay,
yeah,
we're gonna
but
be friends.
At first I was like, who the heck is this? But that being said, especially in these first couple episodes, we kind of had the mentality of regardless of what happens, we're going to upload them.
We want it to be natural.
Yes. It is natural. It is a little awkward. There are some awkward moments, but we're still going to publish them. So keep in mind the first couple episodes, you'll kind of get to watch us make better content and kind of get more comfortable with talking to each other about this content into a microphone. I think really it's just the drive for perfection that makes me so nervous about getting this right. And I really, as these episodes go on, you kind of start to see that melt.
Right. And speaking of not being perfect, our second expectation is, we can't do all the research in the world for some topics. We just don't have the time. So there may be some minor inaccuracies in some episodes. We will do our best to correct those either in the next episode or at the end of the episode.
And at the end of descriptions, we've started to put some disclaimers.
Absolutely. And we do welcome any corrections or additions in the comments. If we say something wrong and you're sure of it, contribute into the comments and call us out on it.
So one thing, we have to make sure that this podcast, we want 1 hour episodes, not hour and a half, not 2 hour episodes, but also not 45-minute episodes, not 30-minute episodes, with exceptions to the pilot and some of the other smaller episodes we're coming out. But to do the amount of research for an hour conversational talk, I mean, this isn't a history channel by any means. So I think we've already made some slip ups. So if you're listening to the pilot, we've already recorded, I think, 6 episodes so far. And we wanted to do that and then record the pilot just so we had an idea of what we were releasing to talk about in the pilot.
Right. We needed to warm up.
Yeah, we did. But we noticed that through those episodes, there were some mistakes and some of them were addressed. Some of them probably weren't. For instance, we got done talking about cowboy guns last week, Squib. Not to give it away for the listener, but stay tuned for that one. Where I mistakenly said 25-35 Sharps, mistaking that for 25-35 Winchester. The cartridge I was thinking about was 25-45 Sharps, and it's just that one little number.
Shame on you, Buck. Shame.
I know. Well, it's something I kicked myself afterwards. It's like, man, I should know better. But especially with cowboy guns, you get so many years and models, which were the years that the guns were released, and then you get cartridges thrown in there, especially with black powder. And so much of that can be mixed up. And I don't want to blame it on dyslexia because I also work in finance and I work with a lot of numbers. So I don't want to getting out there that I'm slipping up numbers because I'm not. It's so much to remember.
As long as you're watching the numbers at work, I think we can deal with a couple slip-ups here.
Yeah, I think so. So if you do find some inaccuracies, feel free to comment. We do welcome any feedback. That's another kind of expectation we wanted to set is, yes, we are imperfect. We'll never claim to know it all. We're not releasing this podcast really, we are being educational, but more so we're being conversational.
Mhm.
And we want to act like we're talking with our listeners. So any feedback that you guys have, whether it's corrections, whether it's something to add on to something that we've said, if it's teaching the other commenters, as long as it's accurate, I will say please post accurate comments.
Mhm.
But if it adds to the content we're pushing out, we more than welcome that.
Absolutely.
Or if it's feedback that helps us improve the podcast, that's also something that's very welcome, Squib.
Yep. Well, since this is a passion project, we want to take the first season to cover the topics that we're most passionate about. Some of these will include military surplus, reloading, cartridges, and firearm history. There's just a plethora of information out there, so we want to dive into what we can and what we know most about first, and then we also want to continue to grow and learn with our listeners.
And until we get a defined audience and a Patreon group, which we'll talk about that later in this pilot episode, but until we get a set sort of audience to give us suggestions, give us feedback, and the kind of content they want to see, we want to make sure that we cover some of the content that we love, not only because we know it, but also for our listeners to kind of get to know us as podcasters and hosts and co-hosts. So
Right, and you'll see through the seasons that Buck and I have very different opinions. We have very different
Yes.
collections, and very different experiences.
Yeah, and it comes together to make a really nice package, I think. So, listening to Buck's Garage podcast, I think you're in for the whole picture, which I think is something that might be missing on the YouTube side, especially
Mhm.
if you're watching GunTubers or if you're listening to firearm related podcasts. I think you get a lot of biased information on people. Maybe they just run plate carriers and 16-inch AR-15s.
Mhm.
Maybe you're listening to Ron Spomer, who only hunts with Woodstock lever action rifles or Woodstock bolt action rifles. Two different ends of the spectrum. You'll find them both here.
Absolutely.
So I do want to take this time. One of our final expectations. We have probably two more to get through on the notes here, but this is a very serious one that I will definitely say is that we will talk about load development when we talk about things like reloading and ammunition. We'll talk about powder. We're going to stay away from weight charges, but most importantly, no matter what, we're not going to be dealing with any load data here.
Mhm.
Any load data that you guys want, you guys need to get from published load data, from published sources, from reputable companies.
Yeah, and part of it's just a liability on us.
Yes.
I don't want somebody loading a hot round and saying, "Well, Buck's Garage said it was okay."
Yeah, well, and even if we don't say anything about weight charges, we don't want any chance of that leading back to us because we're not going to be giving that out that information.
Right.
So that's a big expectation that I really want to make sure it gets covered.
And for legal reasons, there is never anything promoting the sale of a firearm, ammunition, or similar products in any of our episodes. We talk about the deals we've made in the past and will not promote selling through this podcast.
That's also a big one. And we'll talk about this a little later on in the pilot, but we want to monetize this channel in some way, shape, or form, whether it be through Spotify, which we're still setting up, our Patreon, or our YouTube. We want to figure out a way to get some money in from this podcast. And I want to make sure that our listeners know that money, whatever we earn, just gets turned right back into the podcast.
Yeah, and Buck and I were discussing before the episode, it'd be great if, every year we could put that money towards either new microphones or
New equipment.
Paying our editor, because,
Yes.
Editors are not free.
Thanks, Taylor.
Despite how much Mountain Dew or pizza we give them.
Yeah.
Editors do take some money. So we just want to be able to expand on that in the future.
And even if you subscribe to our Patreon, right now it's $5 a month. And we're pooling that money and planning on asking our Patreon members what they want us to do with it. Unlike the federal government, Squib, we want the people to know what their money's going towards.
Oh, pulling at my heartstrings there.
I know.
So if our Patreon subscribers later, have interest in a certain firearm that they want us to purchase and review, we will happily do that. We'll
Firearms, optics.
we'll see what we're gonna do. The world is our oyster.
And that's going to be a big key to our Patreon page is you'll have a direct communication line to Squib and I to talk about maybe it's some of the inaccuracies in our episode.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's some of the exclusive content that we're looking to put on Patreon. And maybe you just want to chat with us.
If you want to be a Patreon member just so you can get in our inbox and say how dumb we are, okay, I will take it. That's fine.
Yes, I'll take the $5 there, Squib. Not going to lie.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many of those we're going to get, but you never know. So those are our expectations for the first season. We're going to update this pilot episode after every season just to lead into the next one, just to keep this fresh. I mean, I don't want to be uploading our 5th season podcast and still have this video up and be the disclaimer, because I'm hoping we become 20 times the podcasters we are now.
Absolutely.
By that time. But moving forward, I do want to talk about some of the goals we have, and Squib, feel free to kind of join in with some of the goals that you have, because I know we're two different people. I want multiple seasons.
Absolutely.
Which we are going to, right now, we're doing 20 episode seasons. So I would like to get to a point where we're uploaded, 40 to 60, that's 3 seasons worth. If we can get to triple digits, that would be insane.
Yeah, we'd have a cool 100th episode celebration of some kind.
We would. Maybe a face reveal.
Ooh.
You never know.
There we go.
You never know. And that's the other great thing is right now we're a blank canvas, Squib. So, anything can happen. And the more pressure we get from our listeners and our Patreon followers, more likely it is to happen.
Absolutely. Another goal we have for the podcast will be more guests from the firearm industry related companies. If we could have some guests on from Midway USA or Hornady Ammunition. Brownells would be great. Even a couple of gun tubers. I mean, now the day we get like Hickok 45 on here to sit down.
Could you imagine?
That would be a dream come true, because I've never met the man, and I would love to.
Tall, very tall.
Tall and big hands. It's that's the problem with his reviews sometimes. The gun looks small, and I'm like, I could carry that. And then I realize I don't have quadruple XL hands like he does.
I put on Hickok 45 to go to sleep too, Squib. I'm not going to lie. It's in the voice. Good. I think a lot of listeners will relate to that if they know Hickok 45. If you don't, that sounds really weird. Yeah. But trust me, it's like a Morgan Freeman voice.
Yeah, he's like the grandpa you wish you had.
Yeah. Yeah, so moving forward, we want to release non-1-hour episodes. The 1-hour episodes are going to be our bread and butter, but I do want to upload shorter episodes to kind of support that content. Whether we turn that into a Patreon-only feature has yet to be seen. One of our goals with our Patreon, I'll just say it right now, we want to turn away at some point from the 1-tier membership, which is $5 a month, and we want to turn it into a multiple-tier membership where maybe it's 5, 10, and 15. Don't hold us to that because we don't know yet. Once we actually get an audience, we'll figure it out.
Yep. And maybe those higher tiers, maybe they get access to the episode early or something like that, or they get access to specific merchandise. We've already had some ideas for some really great t-shirts.
Yeah, merch. That is probably way down the road, but, this will be uploaded tomorrow, Squib. So let's see how it's received. Merch is definitely not out of the question. So once we kind of get our multiple tier Patreon membership going, we can look at what you guys want and then what we can do, and we can match those up and figure something out that's a good package to present with Patreon. But aside from those shorter episodes, we also want to release YouTube Shorts.
Because YouTube Shorts are hot right now.
They are.
Hot.
And I catch myself doing it too, Squib. I mean, all the time. Most of the time I would stay away from Shorts. But it's like a bug. You get bitten by it, and then all of a sudden, you go to the Shorts all the time.
Well, and sometimes, you might want to sit down and watch that 30 to 45-minute firearm review video. But sometimes I just don't have the time. And if you can give me the cliff notes in 6 to 10 minutes, I'm a happy camper.
And sometimes I don't have the listening energy. I just don't. I don't have it in me to listen to. And truth be told, that is what I find unappealing about Hickok's videos. I love his videos, don't get me wrong, but they are long and they are long-winded.
Yep.
So I haven't found myself listening to him as much. But he actually puts out some really nice shorts. And I watch the heck out of those.
Yeah.
So we do want to release some of our own YouTube shorts once we get our consistent uploading schedule and we're getting content to you guys. Then we'll start releasing some more content to support that in those shorter videos and the YouTube shorts.
Yeah, we'd love to do some Q&A videos in the future.
Oh, man.
That would be fantastic, whether that's bringing on guests or if, maybe our Patreon members, every member submits 5 questions and we go through that and do that Q&A style.
Maybe
we'll
even
see what happens.
Live chats, something to that degree.
I could see live chat getting spicy.
Oh, man. People like to fight in live YouTube chats, Squid.
Oh, absolutely.
That's when I get the popcorn out. But like we said earlier, monetization is the goal of this channel. I have no problem telling our listeners that that is the goal, only because I know where the money's going and I want the money to go into this podcast to make better content for you guys, to expand into doing better stuff. If we end up doing merch down the line, it's probably going to be because you guys are supporting us. So if you like the content that we're pushing out, even if you subscribe, even if you like, even if you comment, share, notification bell, those are just YouTube stuff. So, I mean, Spotify listeners, they're doing their job just by listening to us. And granted, that's also on YouTube, but.
And if our Spotify listeners would give us a 5-star review because we love you and we deserve it, that would be awesome.
And see, truth be told, Squib, I don't have Spotify.
You're missing out, my friend.
I have no idea. Well, I mean, commercials every like 30 seconds. But
yeah, I mean, I have Spotify Premium, so I'm a big fan of that.
So Spotify Premium isn't something for me.
I've had Spotify for like 5 years now. I love it. It's fantastic. It beats the heck out of LimeWire from when I was a kid.
Yeah, no, maybe it'll be something I get into. I'll probably use the Bucks Garage podcast to listen to all my bluegrass and rock music.
I forget our music taste is vastly different.
Vastly different.
I'm into Viking metal, and you're listening to bluegrass, so that's cool.
Banjo music, man.
We could probably meet in the middle on like Tyler Childers or something, though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right.
So we've already talked about the Patreon side of things, member exclusive content. If you don't know what Patreon is, you pay a monthly subscription to us. We give you content through Patreon that isn't published through Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, anywhere else. So it's Patreon exclusive content. We can also do merch through Patreon that would be exclusive to our Patreon members, so it's a very diverse platform. We have a lot of ways that we can help out the people that want to support us directly through that subscription. We are still setting up our Spotify Squib, and I say this because we're going to release this episode the day after we record it. We have to start uploading, and this is going to be the first episode we upload before we upload to Spotify. So once this is uploaded, we'll get the Spotify taken care of, and once we get the Spotify taken care of, we'll keep loading and uploading and getting the episodes on and getting them loaded into Spotify. So we also want to be on more social media platforms. Right now we are on Instagram at Bucks Garage Podcast. It's about as easy as you can get.
Way to go, by the way, for locking down that handle.
Yeah.
No numbers, no dots, no nothing.
And don't have to pay for it in the future.
Very nice.
Yeah, so we did lock down the handle. We are on Instagram. There's only 2 posts right now, but that's kind of, if you want sneak peeks into kind of what our uploads are going to be, that'd be a good place to check it out, Squib.
Absolutely.
But Squib, do you have anything in terms of goals or anything that I'm missing? Because there's a big chance.
My goal for this podcast is to help educate people in the firearms industry or people that are looking at wanting to either get into it. Maybe they haven't bought their first gun yet, and they're like, how do I even start? I have no idea where to start or what I even like. If we can give somebody a foothold and something to grab onto to the point where they're going to be more comfortable making that first-time purchase, or maybe we're talking to the members who have been shooting for 30 years and they just want to know a little bit more about a certain topic that we were going to cover. My goal here is to educate and inform, because the more people we have coming into the firearms market and in the firearms industry, the more we're going to help secure our, God-given rights for self-protection and self-preservation with our Second Amendment.
And education is a extremely important factor to that.
And I would say arguably the most important.
Yes. Yep. Because it's one thing to go and just purchase a firearm, but you need the knowledge behind that, I'd argue. In every situation, in every case, no matter what you're buying, you should have the knowledge behind that firearm before you purchase it.
Absolutely.
Well, that's awesome, Squib. One of the inspirations when I started kind of developing the idea for Bucks Garage was, what did I need when I was 18 years old and looking to start my firearm journey? And what information and what guidance would I have needed to have made the best financial choices to make sure that what I'm getting is what I needed?
Oh, if I could go back in time and recoup some of the money that I wasted in the firearms industry, not being smart about my purchases, I would have a much cooler and better collection than what I have right now.
And I think that can be said from a lot of gun enthusiasts. If you could go back in time and kind of audit your purchase history.
Squib flashes back to a $400 lever 30-30 that he didn't buy like 4 years ago. Still hate myself for that.
What's wrong with the lever action 3030?
Oh no, I wish I would have bought it. I missed out on a Winchester Model
those.
94.
I have so many of those. Squib.
I've got about 3 of those that once in a while I'll just get randomly thinking about it, like, oh man, why didn't I buy that?
I have my version of that is a Marlin 336
Hmm.
in 338 Marlin Express.
Really?
It's weird cartridge.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I hope that's the right cartridge. But that's kind of my equivalent. I let that lever action go. I'm actually going to look that up.
I missed out on one a few years ago. I missed out on a $100 Mosin 2 years ago, which for those of you listening, this is 2023, so that'd been 2021. Post time, we won't use the C word here. Yeah, back when I was 17, 18 years old, what feels like a million years ago, Mosins were still $100 to $120, and they have inflated incredibly. I mean, now you can't really touch one for under $400. And if I could go back and get that $100 Mosin again, I saw on a table, boy, I wish I would have.
And they can't see, but I'm shaking my head right now.
Yeah,
I did look it up. It is 338 Marlin Express. I wasn't talking out of my butt that time. But I walked out of Cabela's gun library without that gun, and my best friend still lets me know that
I'm gonna text you randomly at night and be like 338, 338.
Where's that Marlin 336?
Yeah, where is it? Where is it, Buck?
So now that we've kind of covered our basics, our resources, our goals, all that great stuff, I want to take probably 5, maybe 9 minutes at most. Squib. I want to keep this at 30 minutes or less. And just kind of give our listeners an idea of who we are as gun enthusiasts. So I want to give you the opportunity to talk about kind of your experience, your background, your journey, what's been going on for you.
Well, I have been a shooter for more than 20 years. I grew up shooting.
Way to age yourself.
Yeah, I definitely sound older than I probably am, but I've been shooting for more than 20 years. I grew up shooting cowboy guns with my grandpa on the farm, which would be like Ruger single sixes and old Winchester pump 22s. Yep, I said pump 22.
Those are fun.
They're really awesome.
So fun.
So that kind of is what I started off shooting, was just little rim fires. And back then it was, once I was responsible enough, Grandpa would toss me a box of shells and say, "Okay, grab some pop cans out of the trash and go down to the creek. I'll see you in a couple hours," so he'd catch a nap. So that was kind of the start of my firearms journey.
Great way to get some extra sleep.
Oh yeah, smart man. But I've been shooting a long time. As far as my expertise goes, I would definitely say I'm more of an expert in handguns than anything else. I have more experience shooting handguns than any other platform. I grew up hunting as well. At the time of this recording, I'm getting geared up for deer season. Pretty excited for that. Got a new rifle to take. So, I grew up around firearms. It was never a taboo topic. My first firearm was gifted to me on my 13th birthday. And man, that just snowballed. I started off with the Ruger 1022, and then I ended up with a surplus CZ52 and 7.62 by 25 Tokarev. One of Buck and my favorite cartridges. Well, it's on the list. It's up there. It's a long list once you're into this.
Speaking for me.
You're right. But I've always loved firearms. I've loved the history of them. I didn't really get into modern, quote unquote tactical stuff until I was probably 21 to 22 years old. I didn't buy my first AR-15 until I think I was 20 or 21.
Wow.
Now the normal thing for people to do today, these younger men and younger women, absolutely, is to go buy an AR because it's such an appeasing platform.
Well, it's common. It's easy to use, no matter what your politician says.
Absolutely. So I got into the more tactical stuff within the last 10 years, and I've loved it ever since. More about me. I guess I've worked in the firearm industry for a little while now.
That's kind of an important.
It's kind of an important thing. I am a gun dealer. I in the Panhandle, Nebraska.
Works behind the counter.
I work behind the counter. I help educate people on their purchases and do the best I can for them. Cover all the legal stuff with paperwork, all that good stuff. I've worked in the industry now for 2 years. I love it. It has given me a lot of insight into how things go from being a brick of aluminum or steel into a gun that shoots to protect yourself. It's been a great ride.
Yeah,
it really has. And I guess training side, I'm a 3-gun competition shooter. I haven't done it in this year at all because I've been working so much on the counter. I just haven't had a chance because somebody's got to keep the shop open on Saturdays. shout out to Caveman across the border into Wyoming for us. He's a Marine Corps vet who is a great friend of mine. He's been a friend for more than 15 years and a fantastic instructor. So I go out with him whenever I get a chance and I get some more tactical instruction. Just started working on my CQB training. So that was a whole new world for me because I thought I knew what I was doing from watching YouTube videos. I was wrong. So it is fantastic opportunity to learn from him. So shout out to Caveman. So Buck, what about you though? Where's your expertise come from?
Before I start at the beginning, I'll match your energy, Squib, about my handgun shooting. And while I enjoy it, it might not be my primary expertise. I was lucky enough to get in with some CBP, Customs and Border Protections officers, and learn some of the basics in fundamentals of pistol shooting from them. And I got a lot of really good advice and some really good drills to run and shooting handgun. I'd like to think I got okay at it. I don't practice near as much as I need to. I will admit that.
That could be said for just about any shooter, I bet.
Yeah, well,
That's honest with themselves.
And I think that's also because my expertise lies in bolt guns, which I do like a good AR, and my first 2 guns were ARs. But I would choose a bolt gun personally. If I had to do it over again, I'd probably go with a bolt gun. That being said, I grew up in the gun auction, not industry, but I went to a monthly gun auction every month for a solid amount of time, and maybe not every month, as my dad will attest, as I'm sure he's listening to this. But we went a lot. That was my dad and I's bonding time. That's how I got a lot of the knowledge that I have.
Shout out to Papa Buck for getting Buck over here started into that. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was because Middle Missouri, you saw a lot of different types of firearms roll through the auction table, a lot of Mausers, and I would always elbow my dad and be like, "Buy that Mauser for $100," because at the time that was the going rate for any Mauser.
If you go back,
$100, $200, whatever, and I'd elbow him, and his side must have been red by the time the auction was over because it'd be like, "Hey, buy that Mauser, or buy something World War II." Like that's all I wanted, and he'd be like, "No, just no." So I come from a family of collectors first, which is ironic because now World War II and World War I collector's rifles are like the thing.
Yep, that is the hotness in the surplus market right now.
So my family has been collecting odd cartridges for a long time now.
Yeah, you guys have some weird, cool stuff some stuff I've never even heard of, and then you'll be like, "Oh, hey, check out this cool rifle and this caliber." I'm like, "Is this real? Did you mistype this?"
Some of it's like, if you're yeah, I hear the joke, and it was made on Vortex Nation podcast. I won't lie. It was the joke that like, if you're confident enough, anything sounds like a cartridge.
That's very true.
But no.
I dropped an elephant with a 496 Heatherly. You probably haven't heard of that.
Oh yeah.
See,
yeah,
confidence.
For sure. Yeah, honestly. No, there are some of those that sound not real, but that's kind of the allure to collecting firearms for me is what's the weirdest cartridge I can get this gun in? And that's a lot of what we collect. So what I've been collecting through the years are a lot of shootable firearms because we, as a family, we were so focused on purchasing oddball cartridges. We didn't have a 308. We didn't have. I will say we didn't have a 6.5 Creedmoor, but that kind of came out late enough for that to be excusable for my father. So I got the second 6.5 Creedmoor of the collection. And then to start my firearm journey, I wanted to purchase military-related cartridges. So 223/556, 7.62 NATO/308, 300 Win Mag, 338 Lapua. Those were the big ones for me. That when I was 18, old enough to buy rifles, that's kind of what I was looking for. So I've been purchasing for about 6 years now. And I have horse traded a little bit, not near as much as you, Squib.
Yeah, I come from a family of horse traders, so everything's got a price in my mind except for maybe 1 or 2 sentimental heirloom guns.
And I'm the opposite, to where not a lot has left my gun safe, and the ones that have a pretty good reason for
I've probably had, and at this point in my firearms collecting career, if you call it that, I've probably had more than 200 guns pass through my hands.
Yeah.
Between what I've bought, sold, traded, it's just I couldn't even tell you all of them. Yeah. There's no way.
Yeah, so a lot of the focus that I have is collecting for an investment, and I think some people might chuckle when they hear that. But I bought Finnish Mosin at auction a couple years ago for $300.
Oh, the Finnish
And
ones are hot.
well, especially now.
Kind of the one everybody wants now.
Well, now I don't think you can touch one for less than 600.
If you can, I sure haven't seen it.
Yeah. And yeah, I'd say that's pretty conservative as is. So, doubling your money if I were to go to market with that right now, I'm pretty confident in my ability to get 600 out of that gun. It is a very nice, as Mosins go, it is a very nice Mosin.
You mean the Russian garbage rods?
Some people call them. This one's finished, though. They made them nice.
That's very true.
They made them nice.
The Finns did one heck of a job with
they
those.
did. So being confident that I could double my money on that, those are kind of the deals that I look for to stuff my gun safe with. But it is also nice. I do have a second Mosin that I bought for $300 so that I could load 7.62 by 5.4R and practice iron sight shooting.
You are the only man I know that actually loads and or reloads 7.62 by 54 rimmed.
I'm the only person that a lot of people know that loads that cartridge. I don't think there are very many people left, especially if you can buy steel case rounds.
Yeah.
Just throw that in there. It's available.
Shout out to Tula and Bear Ammunition for making that cartridge still affordable to shoot.
Somewhat affordable when you can get it in. The Tula especially. I haven't found as much of that, but my shooting has mostly been around long distance steel shooting. I hit 1,050 this summer with yeah. That was a big monkey I needed to get off my back because I was so ready to hit 1,000 yards.
You've shot literally twice as far as I've ever hit target.
We'll work on it.
We'll get there.
We'll go. But I hit that with 300 Win Mag, 338 Lapois. I hit it with a 6.5 Creedmoor that was someone else's, and then I hit it with my own 308. So that's a decent list.
It wasn't a one-off. Got lucky. Definitely wasn't.
I had to build up my skills, my fundamentals, because I am younger. I haven't been shooting for as long, and so having the fundamentals and the correct way to hit 1,000 was very important. So the fact that I got it on 4 different firearms in 2 different days, that was really nice. So
it's fantastic.
Very validating. So that being said, we kind of talked about it with 7.62 by 5.4R. I do hand load for cartridges. I'm still working on a lot of them. I kind of bit off a little bit more than I could chew because I reload for 223, 308, 300 Win Mag, 330 Lapua, 7.62 by 5.4R.
You said Lapua.
I know Lapua.
Mr. Lapua shames you.
Yeah. I'm trying to load for 300 Winchester short mag right now, but I need a new die set. I have 220 Swift dies, but I don't load for it. 6.5 Creedmoor. I have 30-40 Craig dies that I won't use. 280 Ackley improved.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, Squib buys thousands of rounds of 9mm and 223 and 5.56. So just waiting for the end of the world.
And Lake City isn't even stopping commercial production.
No, saw that email.
You are buying rounds by the thousands.
I am. That's just the man I am.
Not that I can blame you, because maybe a lot of our listeners are going to be the same way, and they're going to yell at me. But
and I think the spectrum is kind of one way or the other. Somebody either has 200 rounds on hand or they have 2,000 rounds on hand. I think it's kind of one way or the other a lot of the time.
Yeah. So to kind of cap off my experience, I also really like the history side of things. It kind of comes from that auction side. I like knowing where things come from. One of my favorite YouTube channels, shout out to CN Arsenal. They do a really good job at deep diving into specific models. Right now, they're only on World War I. They're looking to transition to World War II, I hope. Hope you're listening. They do a really good job. I love their channel. So check them out.
You guys are going to hear a lot of shout outs for our favorite gun YouTubers, our favorite podcasts.
Well, and
it's about sharing the love and sharing the knowledge.
We're going to make that an entire episode of podcasts and resources that we like. Also a couple that we might not. Which that'll be interesting to see how our audience takes that.
Yeah, we'll see if anybody becomes a Patreon member just to yell at us.
A lot of hate mail.
Definitely going to happen.
Maybe. I don't know. Who am I to say, right, Squib?
We'll find out.
So the cartridge history is a big thing for me. Ballistics obviously goes hand in hand with the hand loading. And the history and development of firearms technology is just massively interesting to me. So that's kind of my experience. I think we can cap this pilot episode off. We've given a lot of information about ourselves, and I think we've pretty appropriately assigned the expectations for this podcast. We are looking at weekly uploads every Monday morning. You should have something.
Give you something to listen on during that lunch hour you get at work.
Yeah. Long drives. That was also the inspiration behind this. That's why you can't see us as well, because I do a lot of running for exercise, weightlifting, car riding, stuff that demands my visual attention. So I need something to listen to. So that was a lot of the inspiration behind Buck's Garage Podcast. So every Monday morning, we should have a podcast being uploaded. We are ahead by 6 episodes right now. So we have quite a bit of content scheduled to come
We
out.
wanted to be sure we could take a sick day if we needed to.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We didn't want to go into this not prepared. So keep an eye out for more episodes. We'll have our resources in the description. You can also check out our main YouTube page if you click on our little icon. We look forward, check out our Patreon, check out our Spotify or Instagram, hopefully our Spotify when it gets up. And if you'd like to support us, like I said, click that subscribe button, comment, notification bell, like, all that good stuff. I mean, you know the drill by now.
Every little bit helps.
Yeah. So with that, we'll see you on Monday with our next Buck's Garage podcast episode.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Squid.